Okay, I'm going to start off with an apology. So the apology is that I'm insane. I did 4 presentations this week. 4 preps for anybody is insanity because I don't know if you guys do a lot of presentations, but each one of these is about a minimum of 20 hours of effort to put it together from scratch. So last night I realized I needed something, so I actually asked my good friend Henry Bruce for his slides from ELC last year, and that's actually what I'm going to use. But because of timing, what I'm actually going to do, so these are not up. So, okay, the reason these are not up is I can't get the template to work for the template that we've got, and I didn't really have a whole lot of time to scrub these completely, and so we will be putting up a set of slides that would have been the full coverage material that I will have worked through in the appropriate way. So you can go look at those later, but I'm just going to cover, we're also all getting tired and the day is getting long. So I'm just going to cover a specific part of this slide set that goes over the workflow that we have we agreed in the team as to why the ESDK exists and what we're supposed to use. So that's actually what I'm going to cover here. And then if we've got time, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to actually build your own ESDK and just kind of go from there. But okay, so I'm trying to go over here. What we're trying to show here is the reason we think the ESDK is useful is for in your team, in your company, for the workflow, for all the other people that are there. Because even though Yocto project, we've got a whole bunch of us that are all experts at this, we're kind of aware that for many of you, you are the one and only system integrator and build person, right? And you're probably just flailing trying to learn Yocto while everyone else is like, product, it must deliver, right? And they're just nuts. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to say that there's different roles. So we've got Bubba, who's our distro engineer, who's the one that's actually producing the tooling that becomes your product, right? So this is your distro layers and your application layers, BSP layers, whatever, but it's the metadata, right? This is literally what that is. That's this Bubba role. And then we've got Joe, who's your C library developer, right? So he's writing your I2C drivers or something like that. And then we've got Lori, who's a Python application engineer, right? Or she's a node engineer or something like that. And then we've got the wall, right? Because some of us do indeed hire outside contractors who are never inside your corporate firewall or anything like that. And they're doing something else. So we've got Betsy, who's doing JavaScript stuff for us, right? So the idea is that, so Bubba started off, product just launched and created an ESDK and put it up as an ESDK server, which, is that just S state, Henry?
Sorry, is that
the ESDK server, is it just S state? Is it the same as S state cache or it's different?
It's called S state, but S state behind it.
Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
So also my apologies, I do not dog food this yet, so I haven't done a lot of this, but so the idea is you got the server that everyone else is going to be pulling down, right? So step one, Bubba created this distro. You blast it out to everybody's developer box. Everybody starts day one with ESDK. Okay. So now Joe has made an update, and we need this new update to get put in. So it ends up he's added some entirely new library that has never been used before. It's not in your build system yet. Because we've got Devtool add, Joe can go ahead and create a recipe. He thinks it's okay. It kind of built for him, works for me, good enough. And we think we're all right, finalizes it, everything. So he puts it in some staging place, right? Now Bubba is the one who actually knows how Yocto works and how BitBake works and everything, right? So Bubba is gonna pull it in, scrub it, and turn the crank on CI, test it, so on, all that automated stuff, and then ship out a revised ESDK. Okay. So now, again, I highly suggest that you have a mechanism where this gets blasted out overnight to the next morning, that everybody comes into work and they've got the new ESDK ready to go, right? So we're blasting that out to Lori and Betsy, who don't know anything about C or whatever, right? I mean, they're very good at what they do, but they are not Linux savvy people. They're not Yocto savvy at all. All they do is what they're doing. And to ask them to do more, we're probably just going to confuse them. So instead, we blast out the extensible SDK. Maybe they do know how to update, do Devtool update or Devtool add or whatever like that. Maybe they don't, but let's just pretend that that's good enough. Since it's already in the ESDK, they can do it. They do their normal build, debug, whatever they do. We finalize, we bring that back in, and Bubba turns the crank again, right? So now this time, let's say that we're well into the end of our development, right? It's time. Release is frozen. Everybody's tested it. We're now going to release candidate mode, right? And so Bubba is now going to turn the crank again. Whoops, that's it. Sorry. Turn the crank again, and that's it. This is the production image, right, or production candidate image, which now goes to quality, right? So the one thing I would have changed here or we're changing now because we've been talking a lot about runtime testing and p-test, and the talk I gave earlier today, or not yesterday, I mean, is this is still a little bit more of the traditional model, because now you got the production image, and I'm saying we hand it off to quality and validation. What I want you guys to try to get back to your managers and your customers is get as much as possible of what quality and validation is into Bubba's crank. Okay, as much as possible. So automate the crap out of all the testing that you can do, whether it's unit tests or suite tests or functional tests or image tests or whatever it is, but just try to start pulling that stuff in and add it in and add it bit by bit. Releases come by and you're gonna have more and more of this stuff in there, because the pace of our world, I don't know what's going on with this mic, but every once in a while it dies. The pace of our world is just changing too rapidly. There's too many of us, we've got too much work to do, and we just have to change this to automate as much as possible. So look for a lot more about this particular topic, the testing topic, coming in the next release, because that is the focus of my entire existence for the coming year, as far as I know. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let's just do it. I don't know what's going on, but it's either dying or I don't know. But it's super annoying to have the loud booming voice turn into no voice. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go into our space. And so the first thing we're going to do, obviously you're in a new shell, but we're going to we need to create a build directory. So I'm going to go ahead and call it build ESDK. And again, because we didn't give you any kind of a local.conf sample, I need to go just make sure I've got QEMU ARM. And we're going to change download dir to be scratch downloads, because otherwise, you're going to wait for the internet. And we're going to do state So if I'm going too fast right now, please just make me slow down. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so let's just review. So so we did vim or whatever local conf local.conf. So first we need to make sure QEMU machine is enabled. So do you guys do people understand the difference between question equals and question equals? Is that everybody know what that is, or does anybody want me to go over what the difference there? Okay, so question equals means if it has not previously been defined, define it as this. But question so very loosely, if nothing's been defined, make it defined as this, right? So so the question equals overrides question, but equals overrides question equals. Okay, so it gives you 3 layers of override. There's other ways of overriding variables, like very hard, but that's just kind of what this is all about. Okay, so we just turned on QEMU ARM, and that's because our S state and everything was already built on top of that. So then we need download directory to be scratch downloads. So DL, DR, DIR, and then we need S state DR to be scratch downloads. Okay, so save it, and so we're going to go ahead and do bit core image minimal, which should, because of S state, should be really fast. So of course we got to parse recipes, but
I have a question.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Can a state be copied? So let's say
Yes.
here does a build, can I copy it over?
Yes. So if S state's just a bunch of files in a directory, you can literally just tarball the whole thing up and send it to somebody else and untar it. But we recommend, like what Stefano showed with the package feed, using some easy method like Twisted or whatever to just go ahead and serve it up somewhere. But yeah, it can be copied. So I have about 5 machines that I work on, and sometimes I forget which one I was doing what on, and then I've got a build running and I don't want to stop it, but I needed the S state from it. So I'll actually, just S copy a tarball off to something else. So yeah, it works.
Machine specific.
It should be fairly. It shouldn't. There's a lot of cases where it's not going to matter. It should be okay. So
as long as it's the same, it's true that as long as it's the same branch of Yocto.
Yes, right. So there's certain. So basically, the things that are going to get you in trouble with S state is going to be things very early in the build. So that means any of the native tooling, which basically means GCC, glibc, those kind of things. Those are the ones that are going to just bite you on the butt immediately. The kernel might bite you, but absolutely make sure that you keep your branches in the same branches, and then you'll be okay. But I know for a fact that certain members of the open embedded community have been running the same S state for like 10 years. So they just have a huge, gigantic disk or NAS that they keep adding more and more disks to and keep going. So, okay, so let's get the next step going, because this build will take a while and then we'll talk more. Okay, so I'm just going to do the next step. And this is actually the last thing I'm going to talk about today.
I'm going to show you some of the variables.
Okay, I can go back and show the variables, but I'm just trying to.
Quite a short time.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to. I wanted to get across that workflow because I wanted you guys to understand what the mindset was behind this. But okay, so we're going to do bit bake, core image minimal, and then -C to tell it to do a task. So if I dropped the ext part, it generates the regular traditional tool chain, right? Just by doing _ext, it's going to generate the extensible SDK. And this has a lot it's got to do, because what it's going to run, you're going to see a ton of native SDK dash whatever recipes, okay? So in a lot of BitBake recipes, you'll see this BB class extend equals native. That's fairly common. So that's when you want it to run on your development host machine, right? But you can also do the BB class extend native and then native SDK, and then the native SDK means it'll also build here. So let's say that you have a huge amount of Python stuff. Your entire web framework is all Flask, and it's all just a ton of Python stuff. You could make every single one of those native SDK, which means all of those Python modules will be installed in the ESDK type of thing, right? So it's pretty powerful. So I think it blew through a whole bunch of stuff, and now it's just on the very, very last task, right? So as usual, rootfs, this is building even bigger than a rootfs, right? So that last task is cramming a lot of material into the rootfs, and then has to tar it up and so on, right? So just be forgiving of that, walk her away, have a cup of coffee, and come back, right?
So for the ESDK,
Yep.
let's say you have several machines and several architectures.
Yep.
Machines. You need an ESDK for each.
Yes, so the ESDK, just like an SDK, it only supports one particular tool chain. And that's because the machine variable that was set, right, it's per distro per machine, right? So if you have multiple distros, so I have derivative distros in my workflow where I've got just a command console image, and then I have another image which has graphics in it. And the way I switch between those is actually with a distro. So it's just a derivative distro. But so that you're changing too many things when you change distro variables and machine variables in order for any of the toolchain stuff to translate. So yeah, so you need more than one. Yeah. So which of the variables do you think I should go over?
I was just thinking the difference between the minimal and the full. The full installer.
I should just let you come up because you're next, and you could go over the slides you want to go over. Sorry. I should actually go over this install part. So this was already done on your VMs, but what we just built, if you look in your temp directory, deploy SDK, you should see several files there, one of which is going to be a name like this. So make sure you get the one that actually has ext in the file name, right? So if you're downloading one from downloads.yoctoproject.org from the releases, you want to make sure that you don't just grab the one without the ext, because that's the traditional tool chain. You need the one with the ext, or else it's not going to have the extensible SDK. Okay. So basically, I just edited these today to try to make it reflect this, but I ran this last night, and so basically you're just going to install it in place, and then that sets up the environment that you see in your
That's a bit bigger. Drag and
Okay. So the extensible SDK has a ton of stuff in it. It's 4 gigs, or as big as 4 gigs, right? So people complain about that. There's ways of getting around that to make it a lot smaller. Henry actually has a slide, or one of the slides in here says it could be as small as 35 megabytes. And then you can just do the rest of it from updating from the update site. So you can do kind of a minimal install, like network install kind of concept that we're used to in regular distributions. But I at least wanted to just kind of go over this really quickly, just to show you what the installation process was that was used to generate your images. And I think David had a slide earlier that showed all the steps that went into generating what your VIMs are, or your VMs are anyway. It is worth going over the fact that it's like a regular cross tool chain, that it once you run that environment script, it has actually populated CC and CXX and all that, and so it'll now work with Eclipse and things like that. And it's worth mentioning for your users, or for the cron job you're going to run on your user's machine, is the Devtool SDK update, and then whatever the URL is, that's what they're going to do in the morning to catch those changes from last night, right? So, but you could literally probably blast that out to everybody with a cron job or something like that. So it's nice that you can search it, and what Bubba or one of Bubba's minions could do is the Devtool SDK install recipe name to add those new things into the recipe. So. Okay, so this is what Henry was begging me to cover. So, so there's some variables. We love our variables in Yocto project and open embedded. So you can have the SDK extensible type, so you can have minimal or full. You can include a tool chain or not. You can include package data or not. You can add extra tools. I forget what toolchain host task does.
Which adds extra native SDK.
Native SDKs, yes, thank you. Okay.
And the SDK includes PKG data, it's like a big world, but only for enough of the task pipeline to populate the SDK installer. That makes sense. So now everything's available, not just what's in the image.
So similar to the package feed that you would put in your image, you can also put your SDK update URL into your image, so that people are going to get that, get those updates without having to remember what to type in. And we already know about how fast shared state is. I don't know how much we covered state mirrors, but that's basically what I wanted to kind of just cover. So I know we didn't really dive in. I didn't give you a whole lot on that, but we'll have more for you online later when I've had a chance to bring it up to date and so on a little bit more. So that's basically it. I was planning on showing you guys auto update helper, but I think we're going to skip it because we're all fighting our VPNs on this network for some reason. So I'm just not going to do it. So that's it. Any other questions or anything you want me to go over or show you? Everybody's got the glazed eyes. Yeah.
Question: is it through the ESDK? Is it possible to export just the toolchain and give it to a third party?
Through the ESDK, is it possible to just export the toolchain and give it to a third party? Basically, yes, because you have all of that in there. You've got bitbake and everything in there. So now you should be able to run bitbake image -c populate SDK. And that is the toolchain that's already in there, right? So it's a bit funny, but yes, absolutely, you should be able to do that. I've never tried it, but that totally makes sense.
Is it a deploy folder? When you go into the deploy folder, you'll find
It'll-
the toolchain.
Oh, it's already there. You're right. It's already there.
You can just copy it right out of it.
So thank you. Right. So you just reminded me. Yes. Okay. The extensible SDK had to already have the toolchain built first. So it already built the toolchain and the toolchain installer before it ever even did the extensible SDK. And the reason is that installer is just a wrapper. It's just a shell wrapper around a big bunch of binary data. but it actually has, you know, the installer for the tool chain is actually also embedded in there. So yeah, so it's already there. But again, if you were making updates locally and you just wanted to flash off a new SDK for somebody, you know, you should absolutely you should be able to run it in that session. So, any other quick questions, or I'll just hand it off to the next person, which is Henry, I believe. Had I known he was going to be the one right after me, I would have just had him do this. No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.